Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGV, and don't change that channel just yet. Yeah, I know. We've got to talk about it. I promised to bring you the best in spiky MTG and updates to the metagame. Well, this is the deck that won a Pro Tour qualifier on Magic Online, the first competitive event outside of Star City Games circuit, with a worldwide audience and players from other regions of both our country and the world. And this is the deck that came to the top. I know. Boo! Nexus of Fate. No! Not this. Anything but this. I know. In fact, I'm going to temporarily encourage, get it out. Put it in comments. All your nasty things in comments. Get it out. Yell it from the rooftop. If it's too profane, of course I will block it. But for the most part, if you need to do a healthy amount of all caps hatred, bitter yelling, you have my blessing this one time. I know it's a frustrating deck to play against. It's a very annoying deck. Many would say it shouldn't exist. That's not for me to decide. I will try to show you how it plays and how it works, and also as well here for best of 3 how it sideboards, because actually knowing your enemy can help you beat it. And believe it or not, there are people who like combo decks and taking all the turns. You might not understand them, but they do exist, and maybe they will enjoy this video. So this take on the deck isn't that far off from what you've probably seen. The 4 Revitalize seem like a definite nod to burn and aggressive strategies. 2 Teferi Hero of Dominaria is pretty stunning as cutting it back and cutting it back. You don't necessarily need Teferi to go off anymore. What you really need is Wilderness Reclamation and Search for Azcanta. And of course, 3 Chemisters Insights gets you there pretty close anyway. Teferi is just kind of the backup plan. Now, this particular deck looks like it has no win cons until you remember that Depose Deploy has a clause on there that says create 2 1/1 Thopter creatures with flying and then gain 1 life for each creature you control. So you go off, you exile their stuff, you take all the turns, you make some Thopters, and you attack with them over and over and over and over again until the game ends. On the other side, if you're not just trying to stay alive and not yet ready to win the game, you can use Depose to tap a creature and draw a card, or Deploy to gain a little life and block some creatures. So it's a defensive measure that turns into a win con, which is what a lot of people were looking for from the card Warrant Warden, which makes a Sphinx. But you could say that Deploy does it better because Depose draws a card when you need to be digging deeper in your deck. Growth Spiral from the latest set has certainly sped the deck up, giving it a ramp condition. Now we'll talk about the sideboard. Anytime that you're up against blue decks, and if you are playing against decks that are good at removing your key enchantments like Wilderness Reclamation, or your Planeswalker Teferi, or your Search for Azcanta, you may want to bring in some number of negate. Going up to 4 is for sure against counters, but I would guess that probably 2 or 3 is good against Sultai midrange because of all the Assassin's Trophies, Vivian Reeds, and Vraskas that they might throw around. Crushing Canopy, very strong against the Mirror because you want to destroy the opponent's Wilderness Reclamations and Search for Azcantas on site, and decent against Mono Blue, which is one of the tougher matchups you can come across. Knight of Autumn, also decent against Mono Blue because they can't use a dive down to protect their Curious Obsession, and it blows up and it gets through a Spell Pierce. So whether they have dive down or Spell Pierce, Knight of Autumn can take out the Curious Obsession right in time. Also good against anything with History of Benalia, and good in so many spots in the meta. Gain 4 life against those red decks. Do what you gotta do. Speaking of gaining life against red decks, bring in Lyra Dawnbringer for that job as well. And against control decks or decks that take longer, that's where you want the Hydroid Crassus. So when you are bringing in these win cons, it does free you up to cut Depose Deploy, which is one of the weaker cards overall in the deck. The reason that you run it is because it's more generally good, but as soon as you know what you're trying to beat and how, Depose Deploy can get cut as long as you're adding other win cons. Hydroid Crassus is amazing against control. Knight of Autumn is probably okay against control. That should give you enough ways to attack for lethal without having to go through Teferi loops or worry about your Teferis getting completely exiled. Other cards, of course, against control, cutting Root Snare should be reasonably automatic, and you want to keep it against anything extremely aggressive like white. How good it is against red is very up and down because of their burn spells. You have to make a judgment about their creature density, and you definitely want to bring in cards like Knight of Autumn and Lyra Dawnbringer. Against really fast decks, you still need some number of Chemister's Insight, but you probably don't need all of them, as there's not a lot of time left to cast them. I don't think I would ever cut Search for Azcanta. There is a world where you can cut Wilderness Reclamation if the opponent just hates on your Wilderness Reclamations that hard, and you can replace them with, say, Hydroid Crassus or ways to go over the top. However, it's pretty unfathomable for the most part. Alright, let's go play some games. We might run out of lands for this growth spiral, which is scary, but with double Revitalize, you can hope that we get there. And immediately the spears are being spewed. Red is a really tough matchup, and it's super popular, so it's going to be one of those challenges. But we are in best of 3, which we'll see how it goes. We do get our sideboard. I think that gives us a lot more play against the deck. Risk Factor has been exiled. And there's 2 light up the stages. That's interesting because Risk Factor is a 3-drop. So they're really going to have some choices here about what to use this turn. They're not going to get as much value off that light at the stage as I think it appeared. Digging for land must be the case. And there is a land. So will we see Mountain Lightning Strike? They would lose the Wizard's Lightning and the Risk Factor. Okay, so they don't have a Wizard in hand, or at least not a Lava Runner, or they would have played that. Alright, let's Revitalize. So I'm going to play one of these lands, and the strategy is going to be to Growth Spiral into another land. And then Revitalize again, and try to stay alive. Runaway Steamkin can be a beating. Any other follow-ups? There's a Lava Runner, so they found one. That does some hasty damage. Alright, let's go ahead and make sure we tap correctly. We want to leave a white mana open, so we can go blue and green. Here is Growth Spiral. And here is this land, Wilderness Reclamation. Here is Revitalize. Nexus of Fate still there. I would love to draw land here for the Teferi. So is that what I go for? Actually, it's probably just Wilderness Reclamation. The next turn we can go Teferi into Nexus and go crazy. So Wilderness Reclamation will untap the land. The red deck, a bit too slow. I would have loved to have seen their hand. It must have been mana issues, because using all these light the stage earlies, using all of these light up the stages early, resulted in them revealing some cards they couldn't even play. Here comes a lot of burn. This might be a hard turn to survive, as I'm sure the whole hand is coming out thanks to Runaway Steamkin. Red does a decent job of keeping Turbo Fog in check overall, and that's one of the reasons why you see Red as the most popular deck on ladder. However, it's important to remember that Red was hugely popular, and some would say unbalanced, before the Turbo Fog thing even happened. Alright, 5 cards in the graveyard. We can play Teferi, the Hero of Dominaria. Remember to put a stop on our end step.
I know my responsibility.
And now we just start going kind of crazy. The opponent may be able to kill it with the help of the Steamkin. A little weird sequencing, as they should have removed the counters for mana first, but probably not a big deal. Alright, Teferi down. We're going to have to test our skills and see if we can go off without Teferi, as having Teferi is a bit of easy mode anyway. Now the really unfun part, where you have to manually tap all your lands in response to this trigger. Although, which part is really fun if we're being honest, right? Alright, Nexus of Fate, shuffle up. And my turn. Land for turn. Let's send out Search for Iskanto. We have 6 cards in the graveyard, so that's very close to a flip. Let's Growth Spiral. Another Root Snare. We could also tap the opponent's creature to get another card deeper. But the deploy gaining life and making blockers, especially with where our opponent's at with 1 card in hand, is probably more valuable. Alright, you have to remember to set this stop every single turn, just so you know. Just so you know. Those of you aspiring Nexus masters out there. Going to go ahead and graveyard the Revitalize, as more life isn't, in my opinion, the important part from here. So let's see what we can find with the Iskanta. It's another Nexus of Fate. Game is absolutely bonkers. Alright, so, and that's game 1. The opponent scooping it up before they see our win con. So, mono red. Some amount of negate is usually pretty good against mono red, countering the burn spells. Crassus is interesting, it can gain a lot of life. But you do need a ton of mana to do that, and at that point it's a bit of a win more. Still, it might be worth considering. So, we talked about Depose Deploy, but it is good in red against red because it gains life. So what comes out? Chemister's Insight I find to be too slow. Growth Spiral's pretty important. But Teferi I also find to be too slow and basically a sucker for burn. So it can come out of the deck. We could even sub out the Nexus of Fates and just try to be a Wilderness Reclamation mega control deck, which is probably fine, to be honest. I don't know that we need infinite turns to beat this deck. It's worth a try, and something I haven't really done a lot with so far in the format. So, yeah, if we have Search for Iskanto going and we're just Depose deploying constantly, we can counter a few key spells, play a Lyra, and play some Giant Crassus. Can't we just win? Do we need a Nexus at that point? Probably not, especially when it's just like a big 7 mana card that sits in your hand when you're getting beaten down. Alright, so we're going to try Nexus without Nexus. Red will be on the play, always dangerous. And this hand. Ooh. I don't know that this hand can win a game for us. I think I'm looking for something faster. And now this, we are in trouble because we need a shock land in order to play these untapped, and that's the big risk now. And our opponent with the draw. It's the draw. Yeah, I think they had a pretty rough one last time. So this is already looking like a tragedy. Oof. All right. Yep, just straight up shock you. Straight up bolt you, I'm sure. Oh, stage illumination. Of course. It's a lighting of stages program at the local Red College. And yeah, here comes the whole hand. Just boom. Runaway Steamkin is GG on the play, that's for sure. And Revitalize, a bit slow, but I'll do it now because what I need to do is I needed to draw a shock land, but we've already kind of talked about that. When your lands enter the battlefield tapped and you're on the draw against red, it's hopeless anyway. And that was nice and quick. So, what did we learn from that? I think we just kept some pretty bad hands. That said, I don't think I can really go toe-to-toe with the deck. When I think about Runaway Steamkin just devouring me, doesn't seem good. I wonder about cutting back on like Search for Azcanta. Just too expensive for Hydroid Crassus, I think. Maybe Negate isn't something we can keep that many of. The deck just seems too efficient for the most part. Reclamation mainly is to play all these spells to hold them off. I still don't think Teferi's right, but I think the rest of the deck, let's put the combo back in. On the play, it's also more likely to get there. Okay, well, we gotta get our lands. Gotta make that happen. I will play this tapped though. I'm not willing to shock myself against the burn deck. Call me crazy. Alright, let's get the Azcanta down. We'll need a white source. We'll need a few white sources if we're going to use Lyra. Okay, no light up the stage this time though. I'm going to graveyard you because I need those white sources. Alright, let's opt. Going to bottom you because I need those white sources. Ooh, this is getting very sketchy. I'm sensing a trend for this game that's going to be God draw, lose to mana, lose to mana. Down to 7. White source. Painfully slow, painfully painful white source. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can be at 8, 9. I guess I have to do it, right? Gotta take my chances. 8, I mean, not 9. And we'll see if the opponent can finish me off. We probably want to try Revitalize before attacks in case we had Depose Deploy. We can tap down the Lava Runner. Root Snare would be ideal, but we already bottomed one, binned one. So Root Snare is incredibly unlikely. Alright, let's go for this. If they have a burn spell with the Firebrand, so they win right now. Yeah. So that's game. Red deck 1, fog nothing. We could have played this. Actually, we should have played it on end step while the Fanatical Firebrands were tapped. That would have given us one more draw. I don't think that we're likely to win that. Those tap lands coming to get us again. Let's see what happens. Turn 1 Terramander. So this is another decent matchup against the deck. And I need land, but I need particular land. I don't need more slow land. That's what we needed. Okay. Let's game on. And do we have the Shard of Course as well? We have an opt. I don't know yet if we're against Drakes or Mono Blue though, and our opponent's stuck on mana. And they say, oops, or they forgot to play a land, one of the two. Although that main phase opt implies otherwise. There we go. Now you're doing it. So now we need land number 4, please. Graveyard. I guess I was too greedy before. Alright. I put a stop on my opponent's upkeep because a good solution to the Curious Obsession issue is a Depose Deploy when they can't attack with another creature. Now a dive down can protect it, but we're doing it on their upkeep before they draw a card, so they have one less look at a dive down. Spell Pierce is probably best. But it does get the Spell Pierce out of the way. Hopefully we can Wilderness Reclamation now. But I would say that Mono Blue is another pretty favorable matchup against Wilderness Reclamation. Especially when they have lands. Our opponent's digging pretty feverishly for the land. And it looks like they're going to end step without that land. Discarding Essence Capture, good choice. Graveyard, we also need land. Unbelievable. I think I will try to revitalize into one. Okay, got there. Upkeep, I will go for the Root Snare, as cutting off the draws is probably a good way to try to keep my opponent down. They're going to let that resolve, which it's not something to fight over, so I understand. I sort of wanted them to counter it, make Wilderness Reclamation more likely to happen. They have to attack or the Curious Obsession falls off, so the attack makes total sense. And the Charting of a Course. Aggressive. Do they hit the land? No, they don't. That means Wilderness Reclamation's coming down. Do I keep this land? I don't necessarily need it, so I will graveyard it, as flooding out is one of the risks. Alright, well, tried to put a stop on the end step. That wasn't happening. I apparently have to play that before I go for the Reclamation. Well, the opponent's having these mana troubles. I could go for a Root Snare. It seems like going for Chemist's Insight is better, because if they add more to the battlefield, they're in more trouble. As the more mana they tap, the more trouble they're in. And there's the third land. Opponent must be thrilled. Plenty of thinking going on. Let's throw out Chemist's Insight, see if that resolves and if we get cards. Alright, more Nexus. And a discard of a Dive Down. Wow, they must have a lot of stuff. So, I think we can main phase a Chemist's Insight and try to hit a land drop. I think that makes the most sense to me. Countering's too risky, generally speaking, here for the opponent. So we can have 7 mana total, or 6. I guess Snare and Insight is probably best. I don't want to take extra damage. With a Flip Descanta, we're doing alright. Alright, resolve. Go for another Insight. Try to keep building mana. And there is a Depose, which I want to, again, try to cast on upkeep to get my opponent to lose their Curious Obsession. I'd expect a Merfolk Trickster, though. Okay. Opt. Let's try deposing you. The opponent will probably dive down or counter that. Well, now they're hitting their stride on land, but it's risky for them to send out a creature. Okay, they're going to do it. So I'm guessing they have some extra counters now. But really, they can only cast one Retort or Spell Pierce. And if I resolve a Wilderness Reclamation, that's a lot more mana, which gets around a Spell Pierce very well. So let's go for that. Mark. 1, 2. There's the Retort. Okay, they're tapped out. They're not going to enjoy what happens next. Alright, blue, white, resolves. And from here, we just want to activate his Kanta as many times as we can. So trigger on the stack, let's cast another Nexus of Fate, shuffle it back in. Untap the lands, activate the Sunken Ruin, find the Nexus of Fate, revitalize, pass, mark the end step, pay 2 life, growth spiral, and now put out another land. Let's go ahead and Nexus now. I don't think it really matters, but this one is probably over, as long as I remember to put stops on my end step. Let's grab Opt and just try to hit Nexus for the rest of the game. I think that's the best way to go. There is a chance we fizzle, but it gets lower with every passing moment. Even discarding Root Snare here. Another Reclamation, just to make things crazier. Another is Kanta. Saving one more Root Snare if we fizzle, although that's very unlikely at this point. So resolve the first set. Activate his Kanta. Find Teferi. Now I'm a mana short of Nexus here, but there's another trigger on the stack, so I've got to add these one by one. The opponent scoops it up, which makes sense. And going to the next game. So we definitely want Negate in this matchup and the Crushing Canopy. In fact, this is a situation where we probably just want the whole sideboard. And if we're boarding in the whole sideboard, what do you take out? Fog isn't very good against mono blue as they counter it. Revitalize, probably not that important. You think it's an aggro deck, but you get plenty of time. And then I'm sort of thinking that we cut cards like Wilderness Reclamation and Teferi entirely from the deck. Maybe Teferi can stay, but the whole Nexus of Fate thing, instead we're going to be a Hydroid Crassus deck and just try to overpower the blue deck, which we'll see how that goes. I think that they're going to really stay focused on like Spell Pierce and Negate and things like that. Maybe a single Reclamation is doable. Trying to think of what would be best against their deck. I guess another Revitalize is probably a little bit better. We were able to go off mostly because of their mana woes in game one. Now we're sort of a rampy Bant control deck that tries to get buy time and play a huge Crassus. I think a Root Snare might be better. The opponent might think I boarded them out, so I might hit them with that at the crucial moment. Alright, let's try this combo free. So part of what I'm trying to learn, the more I play this and what I'm sharing with you, is when to board out the combo, which is why I'm trying it in a few different matchups myself. I promise I don't actually have a million hours of Nexus of Fate Turbo Fog logged, so part of this is me learning when they would board in the combo, when they would board out the combo, and where it belongs. Opponent might have a much better draw this time. Let's see what happens. No Curious Obsession, though. Count my lucky stars. Chart, of course, is good, though. It's kind of like a mini Curious Obsession. So, do we Growth Spiral first, or do we Azcanta first? Something tells me that sliding the Azcanta under some kind of counter magic might really help us in the long term. At the same time, Growth Spiral only hits once. I think I'll say go. We also have Depose Deploy if the opponent goes for a Curious Obsession. No Curious Obsession yet. Terramander joins the team. And we will go for the Growth Spiral then. Alright. Enters tapped, sure. 4 mana, and we have another Growth Spiral. Let's try for an Azcanta. This might get countered, but I think I'm okay with that. It does not get countered. All right. So my next plan is to do Growth Spiral once again. Here is Merfolk Trickster, the opponent moving in. Should I Growth Spiral first? I think I should. While they're tapped out, I mean. You can enter tapped. I don't want to pay life in this spot. Creature Assault, down to 14. Search for Azcanta of your own. Okay. Teferi. That's a pretty good card. Is it the right card? In this spot, the minus doesn't do much. The draw could really help, though. I'm keeping it on power level alone. Curious if I can opt into another land. Also curious if Night of Autumn will resolve. I think it's more likely to resolve if I have mana open. Take out the enchantment. Yeah, let's throw an opt now. There's the land. That'll let us play a nice big juicy Crassus. Long way from flipping that Pteramander. Long, long way. Not looking to use the Depose quite yet. Deploying some Thopters may turn out to be better. And deposing a creature with a Curious Obsession is much better. Another land would give us a 5-power Crassus potentially, although I'm sure it's about to get countered. Can't Spell Pierce it, though. Still, flooding out's one of the risks, and I'm going to bin this. Let's go Hydroid. Even if it gets countered, we get 2 life and 2 cards, which is sort of like a turn here. And there you go. Now we have Teferi with Negate to back him up. The opponent's still, well, they're getting there, right? They 1 land away from activating this Pteramander. And then we have a real problem. Another Herald, though. Lots of creatures on this draw. Graveyard. Don't flood out, please. More Hydroid Crassus is what I really, really want. Let's send Teferi. Does somebody need a hero? Resolves.
Sorry I'm late. No time for a break.
Another Night of Autumn. All right, let's go to end step. It would be nice to have deploy available, as well as possibly negate, growth spiral, all the options. The opponent with a stop on end step. Interesting. Trying to decide what's better, trying to depose the Pteramander or making Thopters to block it. Depose is such a play into dive down that I think it's deploy. I think deploy is the answer. Opponent's trying not to trade with Night of Autumn. Obviously, if they find another Trickster to tap the Night of Autumn, they can get more damage in that way. And I think if this is the attack, I let it resolve. So let's go to blocks. The opponent can go for a big old pump on Pteramander if they want to, but they don't. I think they can. 5, 6, 7. Oh, they were still 1 short. Makes sense. All right, so I'm going to try to deploy some Thopters. It might be countered. There's a canopy, but it can't really do anything right now with the Storm Tamers, so I'm going to graveyard it and transform. Let's draw some cards with the fairy.
Hurry.
Really, I just want to spam more Crass Eye. Although deploying more things is not bad. Plus we can also hold up an activation of his Kanta. We're going to untap 2 lands. Does that mean I should do something different right now? Should I deploy on my turn? I think it's... I don't have anything to block right now with Night of Autumn. I don't have a Curious Obsession to kill. I feel like opting into another land is probably best. Although we may see something we'd rather keep, and that's fine. Alright, so we opt into the land. Now we can Growth Spiral. See if we hit another. We do not. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Still have 8 mana available, which is what I was looking for. Quite the scrap we're in here with the mono blue deck. I'd say we're ahead. We definitely have a lot of options, and their hand doesn't show signs of being particularly strong. I'm pretty confused by the cards that are left here, whether they're negates or something of that nature, or Spell Pierce. Anyway, let's make sure that we don't tap his Kanta by accident here. And we want to play this first, because we do not want it to get Spell Pierce, because we search with his Kanta first. You can tell the opponent does not want to use a counter on this very much, if they have one. And 2 Lyras to the bottom. Ouch. Part of what happens when you load more creatures into your Search for His Kanta deck.
Keep up the pace.
Alright, another negate. Let's try a main phase Chemister's Insight since we get 2 mana back anyway. Dig, dig, dig. And we'll go to end step and just focus on drawing more cards. Finding more Crassus. That's big objective. Crassus them out. Just get all hydroided up. Get a very swole Crassus. Smash, smash, smash. Poor Pteramander. Stuck as a 1/1.
Don't make another move.
Needing just a land or a spell and not having it so far. Alright. Still have to manual tap because the game gets wonky. There we go. There's the big critter. And another Depose Deploy. Just powering up the team. 25 cards in the deck.
You know what? I'm not done yet.
I doubt the opponent kept Essence Capture in the deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright. Seems fun. Alright. No attacks. I'm still not convinced that this is going to be there. If they brought in Entrancing Melody, they are just extremely psychic, and they know my plans. Alright. You have a Trickster. Makes sense to tap that creature. It is big. Now, I don't need a whole bunch of this land. Probably don't need that Search for His Kanta either. 6 cards, so 3, 4... 5, probably the Growth Spiral, 6. And that's gonna do it. The opponent can't take anymore. Well, I'd say I hope you enjoyed this video, and I sincerely do, but I know for some of you, it may have been a battle a battle with the hate in your heart for everybody's least favorite card in the format right now. But to beat it, you have to at least know what it's up to. And hopefully by watching this video, you saw where the sideboard plans work and where they don't. If you're mono blue, you probably need to be ready for Hydroid Crassus in post-sideboard games. As weird as it seems, you may still want to be playing with Entrancing Melody against Turbo Fog after sideboard, because that was a pretty effective plan against mono blue. As for mono red, do your thing, burn them out, don't ever stop. And I would probably not bring in the creatures aside from Lyra for that battle, because the combo is still getting a quick combo seems to be what you need to do against them, and red doesn't interact with it. So anyway, thank you for watching. I know, one time pass, all caps, ragey, whatever you want to put in comments. Just please don't curse too much. Children watch this channel. I do know that for a fact, and I love the fact that kids can watch my channel. So please be respectful in comments, but you have my permission to all caps rage, anger, everything of that nature. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.